Call of Duty World at War doesn't get the credit it deserves. Being put into the unenviable position of being the follow-up to Modern Warfare, a genre-defining masterpiece, while simultaneously returning to the World War II setting, didn't do the game any favors either. Perhaps the most damning thing that can be said about World at War is that it's basically forgotten about. Ask an avid Call of Duty player what their favorite game is and you'll run the gamut, but rarely will you land on World at War in that coveted #1 spot. It was the first Call of Duty game I ever really invested time into, dropping probably hundreds of hours online with friends. It was an after-school ritual. Get home, unwind a bit, and play some World at War. Like every other teen boy in the early aughts, I eventually moved on to future titles in the series, jumping ship to join the moving crowds and rarely looking back at the older titles. When I started the game up again a few days ago, the specter of misplaced nostalgia flitted into my head. Maybe those puzzled looks I got when I responded World at War to the question of what my favorite Call of Duty game was were actually warranted. Maybe my love for World at War had more to do with who I was when it came out than its actual qualities. Maybe I'm just plain crazy. But I believe World at War is more than just another World War II shooter. The funny thing is, when I first played through World at War back in 2008, the campaign didn't exactly stand out. I thought it was fun, but it wasn't, mind-blowing. I left the game thinking of it as a World War II themed Modern Warfare, which was quite the accomplishment, but not something especially noteworthy. In my mind, the biggest standout feature to the game was the gore. It's really interesting how deeply your perspective can change over the years in regards to even your favorite things. I used to revel in the gore. I thought it was cool. I loved it. It was just like getting Gibbs in Gears of War Quake to me. A visceral reward for hitting your shots and just being good at the game. This time around, I found the gore to hold an entirely different meaning. It seems clear to me now that Treyarch added the gore not as a reward, but more as a punishment. It's there to reinforce the game's central theme of humanity. Previous games in the franchise all focused heavily on the glory of warfare, dabbling in tragedy only when it helped them to tell a more cinematic story. They all took a more Hollywood action movie angle when it came to portraying boots on the ground. World at War, on the other hand, goes out of its way to show the horror and brutality people inflicted upon one another in the largest conflict in history. Seeing people lose limbs in the aftermath of a grenade toss, or hearing the screams of people as they're burned alive by a flamethrower, is genuinely horrifying. It didn't take long for me to feel like I'm not just killing virtual avatars. I'm killing people. The game has some pretty great set pieces, but they're spaced few and far between compared to its contemporaries. Instead, World at War takes the approach of throwing you headfirst into pitched battle after pitched battle after pitched battle, over and over and over. On the American side of things, you aren't the one-man wrecking machine hero you're usually embodying. Instead, you're just one man in a squad fighting to survive the day. There are so many little things that add to the overall pessimistic tone the campaign quickly settles into. You can really hear it in your commander's voice. Brilliantly done by Kiefer Sutherland. He sounds broke down. His men are broke down. Everybody's broke down, and they just don't want to be there anymore.
Miller! Get over here! Hold on, kid. We're gonna get you out of here. Help me get him on the truck. We're moving out! 2,
You leaving?
Push ahead and take Sherry Castle.
But we're running on empty here.
You'll have a supply
It's
drop
not bad,
in the
okay?
Tomorrow? How the hell are we supposed to hold out till tomorrow?
This is bullshit.
You hear this, Sarge? We ain't getting shit till tomorrow morning.
Intel says Sherry Castle is mostly deserted. Look on the bright side. After this, you boys will probably get relieved and be on the road.
Yeah? That's what we thought after Peleliu.
There's a one-off mission about halfway through the campaign that's basically this game's equivalent to the AC-130 sequence from COD 4. In it, you take control of a gunner on a warplane on a mission to destroy some merchant vessels transporting something to Japan under escort. It's implied they're carrying weapons or something of that sort for the Japanese army, but never outright confirmed or denied. What ensues is pretty much a massacre. You easily destroy the convoy, taking only a little counterfire in return. Let's call it an ambiguous warm-up to the new gunner mechanics. Shortly afterward, you're called in to help defend some American ships in nearby waters. Here, the hoo-ah tone of the last 5 minutes is quickly squashed, as you see multiple American ships destroyed in a matter of minutes by numerous kamikaze attacks. Suddenly, your job is switched from warrior to rescuer, as you fight to pull survivors from the water. The game even keeps track of how many people you save, and gives you a slightly different comment afterwards based on that number. Regardless, you can only rescue a small handful before slowly limping away in your virtually totaled aircraft. This set piece is basically one long slideshow of tragedy, as you watch people die in the water around you, helpless. It really encapsulates the tone of the game as a whole. One where the power fantasy of war is swiftly subverted by a stark sense of futility.
Left it pretty good. We got 4. Okay, taking us home.
On the Russian side of things, that futility is instead replaced with ambiguity. Your first mission is essentially enemy at the gates of the game, which is really cool, but more importantly, sets up the Nazis as irredeemable monsters. Now, this may seem like the most obvious thing in the world, but it's important because they later try to subvert this baked-in bias, and get the player to see the Nazis less as abstract monsters, and more as human beings who are Nazis. Your commander, a man named Reznov, who inexplicably became a huge part of Black Ops later on, is the perfect caricature of a World War II Russian sergeant guy. He drinks, he curses, and he kills with no mercy.
Steel yourselves, men, for the final push to victory. Today we crush what remains of their fascist right. As heroes, we will return to Russia's independence. Our land, our people, our blood.
He repeatedly praises the player for cutting down huge swaths of German adversaries. Over the course of the campaign, the tide of the war, of course, begins to turn. You start out on the defensive, trying to stop the Nazis from conquering Russia itself. You're a man defending his homeland from foreign invaders, and it's a desperate struggle just to hold off the advance. By the end of the game, you're in the German capital itself, planting the Russian flag on the roof of the Reichstag. As you start your advance into Germany, taking the fight to the enemy, the game puts you into the position of questioning your purpose. Questioning if what you're doing is justified. If it's any better than what your past oppressors just did to you. If turning Germany into a pile of rubble and retribution is really the best path to tread. You see torture. You see impromptu executions in the streets. And ultimately you as a player have to choose whether or not you want to participate in these acts. In fact, there are a handful of times you're given the choice to participate in these war crimes, but cleverly, the game doesn't really tell you that these are choices. For instance, in this mission, you're handed a rifle after being rescued from a small group of German soldiers who were holding you captive, and immediately told that you should put the Germans out of their misery by Reznov. Now, one might assume that it's just part of the game to shoot these men on the ground, but you can just as easily walk away and continue on. And if you do continue on and show this slight mercy, someone notices.
Once again, you cheat death. Our tanks are ready to smash this line, and... Chernov! I am not hearing gunshots.
There is no point, Sergeant. They are already bleeding to death.
Then maybe our friend will help them bleed faster.
The most interesting thing to me about the campaign is a character who follows you around on the Russian side by the name of Chernov. Chernov is something of a pacifist, and he's constantly bullied by Reznov because of this. He's frequently seen writing in a journal he carries around, and when you're given the option to show mercy or to show ruthlessness throughout the campaign, he often provides a voice of reason, imploring the player to do the right thing. Towards the end of the Russian campaign, your army corners a small group of German soldiers in the entrance to a metro tunnel, and you can see the fellow soldiers around you lighting Molotov cocktails, ready to throw them on the men and watch them slowly burn to death. In this moment, you have to choose whether to watch these men burn or shoot them before they throw the Molotovs. There's no way to save these men. There's no right choice. There's no way out of the situation. You're there, and you can only choose the matter of execution. That's it. This is the moment that finally breaks Chernov, and as he's writing of the event in his journal, he's ridiculed once again by Reznov. Reznov labels Chernov a coward, and gives him the job of flag bearer, almost as a sort of punishment. Soon after, you storm the capital, and Chernov dies an unceremonious death before you can achieve victory. After his death, Reznov picks up his journal and reads a passage to you. And here's the crazy part. This journal entry changes based on your actions up to that point in the story. If you, as the player, show mercy, then Chernov's journal will talk of the player as a hero. If you prove yourself to be a more merciless killer, then Chernov calls you a savage. And if you show mercy at some points, but not at others, Chernov writes about how he just doesn't understand you and the choices you made.
April 30th, 1945. When he first spoke of Dmitri, Reznov told tales of a hero. Someone we should all aspire to be like. At times, I have seen him show mercy, but at others act with complete brutality. I do not understand him. Perhaps heroes need not question their actions.
It's this kind of detail that I really feel separates World at War from its contemporaries, and seals it, in my mind, at the top of the best of the franchise list. Unfortunately, I fear most players never even knew that this was a variable, and that this thing could change, and that the game was tracking your actions. The last piece of historical footage shown in the game, after beating the final level, really cements the more human tone I believe World at War was trying to embody. In it, you see the nuclear bombs fall on Japan, and hear a somber speech from General MacArthur about finding peace in the aftermath of carnage. It's a pretty powerful scene, and one beautifully edited together by someone who really knew what they were doing. And for posterity, here's that clip in full.
General Eisenhower informs me that the forces of Germany have surrendered to the United Nations. The victory won in the West must now be won in the East.
Gathered here representatives of the major warring powers to conclude a solemn agreement whereby peace may be restored. It is my earnest hope, and indeed the hope of all mankind, that from this solemn occasion a better world shall emerge out of the blood and carnage of the past. A world founded upon faith and understanding. Of man and the fulfillment of his most cherished wish of freedom, tolerance, and justice.
I never expected I'd be making anything like this after replaying a Call of Duty game of all things, but here we are. What I expected was a set-piece driven movie theater popcorn experience, but instead I found myself contemplating the horrors of war and the brutality of man. Thanks for watching. And that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching. If you stuck around to check this video out, if you've been around and seen me making food reviews and I'm wondering what this is, I don't know. I got a bit of creative inspiration, which is very rare for me, but something about this called out to me and I felt like doing it. So here we are. Food reviews are still going to be a thing, but honestly, the main reason I've been reviewing them is money. It's just too expensive to buy fast food for the most part. So I've been avoiding it even in my own life in general. So I've just kind of fallen off that bucket mainly because I just am not in the game. Even cheap things are a little bit too expensive these days, if you catch my drift. So in an effort to not be homeless, I kind of have stepped back on that, but I would like to get back into it. Hopefully I can, and if I get into a better financial position, I definitely will. But that's the reason why those things slowed down. But, you know, I'll try to make videos when I can, and then I got this, which we'll see how this turns out. If this ends up being something that people watch, then obviously I'll probably want to do more. I have a couple other ideas, but I haven't started work on any of that stuff. I just had the ideas, and then I thought, you know, I'll make this and see what people think, because I'm very curious to see how this turns out. I don't even know how it's going to turn out exactly at this point. I'm recording this while I'm recording the voiceover for the video, but that's completely separate from recording the gameplay and editing it all together. And editing is not something I really am good at. I'm just somebody who trims a clip down and can split it into separate pieces and trim it. That's basically my experience. So this will be fun. I'm not probably going to do anything extra special, but we'll see how it turns out and as the final product. I honestly don't even know at this point, so hopefully it's interesting and good. And I'm now rich and famous, so that's the idea. Not really, but that would be nice. Anyways, hopefully you found something interesting in this video. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff if you can, if you feel like it. If not, don't, because honestly, most of the time I don't either. It does help though, genuinely, if you're looking to help maybe a smaller channel like mine, or anybody else. Definitely, like, even a comment that's just, hey, nice video, or something, just a thumbs up or something, I think helps the algorithm. At least that's how I understand it. But, you know, that's just if you're feeling magnanimous, if you're feeling in the mood. Otherwise, just move on with your life, because that's what I would do, because it's a YouTube video and it's not really that serious. Anyway, see you next time.